the representation of crisis to the crisis of representation. So we will have 4 presentations. Vanda Sárai, Sylvie Nimet, Kosovo, and Zsolt, who is coming with us from Zoom from Karlsruhe. However, she will join us here in Budapest tomorrow, but unfortunately, due to scheduling problems, she had to attend another event today in Germany. So, okay. Today we start this session with Vanda Sárai, virtual bodies, virtual threats on online violence and real-life anxieties. Vanda is a curator, a writer, and a researcher, and she's doing a PhD at the Flóra University here in Budapest. So,
Okay, so hi everyone. So my presentation won't have a very strict line of thought. These are more like impressions I had in the recent months when I was preparing for this presentation. I think there's some thoughts for debate here, so that's what I would like this will raise. So when I started preparing for this conference last summer, I wanted to talk about Amalia Ullmann's performance from 2014 called Excellence and Perfections. And the current state of online girlhood, but there was a huge scandal in Hungary in the digital sphere. The Hungarian participants might remember the motherless scandal, which changed my mind, or at least diverted my line of thought a little bit. So I still want to start this presentation with Amalia's performance, but I want to talk about more about the anxieties that derive from losing the agency of our online representation. About how gloomy it is to be on social media these days, and how unchained audiences, both online and offline, have become. So, this might be a personal introduction, but I don't know about you, but whenever someone new follows me on Instagram, a question instantly pops into my mind, like, why did this person decide that they want me to be present in their newsfeed? Like, what do they expect in general from me? What do they want to see? And on these occasions, I always have this weird feeling of having to perform. And for a couple of seconds, I reevaluate my habit of posting. Like, is this person interested in my work? But I still want to keep sharing goofy photos of my dog. Is this high school classmate? I highly doubt they are interested in my latest academic publication. And even though I regularly have this spiral in my mind, I also pretty quickly come to my senses, because goodness me, I'm not willing to have separate accounts for my professional life, for my personal life, etc., because ain't nobody got time for that. But I was trying to reflect on what drives these emotions, and some things that came to my mind that
I think that online follower bases become more and more judgy and unpredictable. I feel more and more protective of my personal feel and privacy. Maybe it's because of my age, maybe it's because of experience, but this is how I feel. I also don't want to miss out on shouting my most important news into this void of social media. And yes, I'm perfectly aware that these are very conflicting needs. And the solution could be, you might say that I could set my account private, which used to be the case with me, but then when I started posting more about the exhibitions I curated, I mostly got feedback from the graphic designers, the artists. It would be nice if my work would be visible. So I set it to public, and then again I go into this circle again and again. So I hope at least one person can relate in this room. About the performance that I want to share a little bit about. These conflicting needs were among the list of inspiration for Amalia Ullmann's performance. She already in 2014, so I'm not sure about you, but I heavily started using Instagram in 2015, so she was already done with this whole dilemma by the time I started using it. She felt the pressure of what we now call personal branding. And by this time, she was pretty young already back then. She was endorsed by Hans Office as a promising young artist, and as she regularly engaged with social media platforms in her work, she often participated in discussions about this practice. And reflecting on her work later, she said that in December 2013, I was invited to participate in a talk on self-branding. The term nauseated me. Was I self-branding? My openness had become a commercial strategy, no filter. I was unintentionally performing the stereotype of the artsy brunette, the poor female artist that had moved from a provincial town to the big city, the eager learner that requires to be saved by the male director of a museum or some school of fine art. So if self-representation was an asset, if Facebook selfies overshadowed works of art themselves, I have to boycott myself to undermine the capitalist undertone of my online presence. Let the trolls in. So basically, to protest against this identity factory that we have to perform on social media, she created this Instagram performance, which became a pretty big hit soon afterwards. It is now archived on Vizor. Anybody can actually watch the post, and later on it was exhibited in very prestigious institutions such as Tate Modern. To summarize quickly, I'm sure some of you are familiar, but if somebody is not, the performance is basically a crash and burn tale of a beautiful girl. Later on, she commented that one of her inspirations was Amanda Bynes, but I think we could also cite here Britney Spears, teenage movie and pop star icons, constant targets of tabloids, who ended up having mental breakdowns and being under conservatorship, all this scrupulously followed, broadcasted, and commented by the media. Amalia's performance lasted five months long, where she started out as a provincial girl, moving to the big city, where she ends up earning money by becoming a sugar baby and posting images of her fitness journey and plastic surgeries. But the mental burdens eventually lead to a broadcasted mental breakdown, after which she becomes a health and wellness freak, doing yoga and drinking her cleansing juices and finding her way back to a socially acceptable lifestyle. The important part of this project that they didn't share, basically apart from her family, with anyone, what she's going through. All her colleagues, artists, curators who previously followed her were stunned what is happening to this girl that they once deemed as a very promising young artist, but at the same time the new followers had no idea about her artist past. The project had a lot of aspects that could be discussed here in long debate, but here I'd like to highlight two things that will help me clarify what I find upsetting about the current state of online representation. Even though the project was completely scripted, Ullman was also open for some organic developments, and once she started posting images, the likes went up, and soon the offers come in. More and more men who started following her offer to take photos of her. The studio photos on this slide were taken by the photographer of Urban Outfitters and American Apparel. Ullman said that I accepted and I modeled for an unpaid photo shoot because girls want to get their portrait taken for free, of course. As Ullman pointed out, the huge number of offers really surprised her, and when she gave it some thought, she concluded that by taking her photographs, this man also tried to take away her agency, take away her tool of representation, meaning that they wanted to define who Amalia Ullman is and what it is that she should show to her follower base. The other highlight I wanted to share is that Ullman's starting questions were: how is a female artist supposed to look like, and how is she supposed to behave? Well, apparently not how she represented herself in this project, because apparently serious artists cannot look and behave in certain manners. Some followers started cancelling her as an artist. I tried to highlight very aesthetically a comment in here on this slide. This user, Wedding Ninja, says that I used to take you seriously as an artist until I found out via Instagram that you have the mentality of a 50-year-old hoodrat. I think a very powerful element of this performance is the audience's vitriolic, threatening and abusive comments, which appeared on her profile and now became part of the project, and they're also archived and printed in the catalog of the project. As this performance was not only and mainly not about performing this transformation online, but also about how the audiences react. The answer is not very flattering. This also showcases the double-sided nature of expectations online, especially Instagram.
Images like these get a lot of likes, the audiences are attracted to them, but these women who share photos like this are accused of being fake, oversharing, sexualizing themselves, and becoming attention whores. Meaning that the behaviors and aesthetics that are the roads to success also trigger a myriad of criticism. When summarizing the performance, woman said that excellencies and perfections is a project about our flesh as object, your body as an investment, how do we market this flesh, how do we price this meat, and how long will it stay fresh for. When I talked about this project with my students last week, because I was curious what people think who meet to see it for the first time, what we came up with is that even though it's a 10-year-old project, which seems ancient in this time and age, and at the same time nothing has changed when it comes to our online behavior and evaluation of the fictionality of social media content. Being cancelled by our Instagram behavior if it doesn't match the expectations of a certain professional milieu, not being taken seriously if we behave this or that way, even though that kind of representation we are following. If we still put ourselves out there, as we have to be present and visible to get noticed, we are constantly possible targets of criticism and judgment. And if content creators complain about it, it's usually discharged with the advice to grow thicker skin, as suffering negative comments is part of the job. Which all leads to a kind of cruel optimism that Lauren Berlan also talks about in her very influential book. Berlan says that the relation of cruel optimism exists when something you desire is actually an obstacle to your flourishing, and when a person becomes bound to a situation of profound threat that is at the same time profoundly confirming. Berlan's words are often cited in the context of politics, especially in the American dream, where the upwardly mobile good life fantasies exist. But I believe it's easy to extend their concept to social media as well, which can be considered a tool not only to document, but also to manifest a kind of good life. To fake it till you make it, if you prefer. Because what is a good life? Most social media can't give an answer to that question. What is mediated there is a certain person's vision of how a good life looks like, even though it's not necessarily the one they actually live. But we seek affirmation, we seek validation. But what we get in return might change a gloomier image. This is how cruelty comes into play. So I'd like to talk a little bit about those threats and anxieties that grow on us for being present on social media channels, or even when we get there, even though we don't want to be there. Ulma mentioned multiple times that one of the most interesting parts of her project was how her male followers continuously wanted to take her photos, even though it was obvious she was good at taking her own. What we see here is a photo of her taken at the studio at a consensual exchange. She accepted being photographed and used the images as she intended to use them. But what happens when no consent is given? What happens when the Instagram photographs are taken out of context and end up on unintended sites? Or what happens when we are not even aware of a photo being taken and being uploaded to sites whose existence we don't even know of? Because this is what happened to a lot of Hungarian women. I believe the Hungarian audience doesn't need much introduction, but to shortly summarize it. In August, a Reddit thread shed some light on a porn site called Motherless, that according to its description is a moral-free web page. And the Reddit users realized that there's a group titled Hunt Her Down, full of Hungarian women's photos with their names, ages, and the city they live in. Photographs were either stolen from their Instagram or Tinder pages, or worse, they were taken on the streets, on the metro, or other public areas where they had no idea that they were photographed. There were also photos that were taken in public toilets, or some that were shot from outside of hotel room windows. On these photographs appeared the number and the currency, the price men would have paid if these women were actually hunted down for them. Under the photos, the commenters shared their most perverted thoughts on what they would do with the person on the photos if they could get their hands on them. One of the reasons this issue could become a big scandal is because a famous Hungarian influencer was also one of these women. A photograph of her in a swimsuit was stolen from her Instagram account. The timeline from here sheds some light on why it was one of the most anxiety-inducing, misogynistic scandals of the Hungarian digital sphere. When the site was Motherless was contacted to remove the content, the owners, who live in different parts of America, threw up their hands, stating they take no responsibility for the content appearing on their page. It's the responsibility of the ones who upload the images. By the way, the site is said to be a Czech site, and the servers are said to be in Texas, so basically it's a the typical digital situation where the responsibility is very easy to slide between the hands. By the influencer appearing on the photos, try to get the information out there in order for women to find out whether they were affected or not, or what they could do if they were. Instagram restricted her photos and accounts stating content like this goes against its terms and conditions. One of the victims who actually turned to the police got gaslighted by the officer interviewing her, stating that the commenters are only 12-year-old boys, asked the girl if she is bothered by this because she is shy, and told her she should be glad for getting compliments. Even the ones who made a complaint by the authorities faced walls because the investigation can only move towards the case of personal rights or privacy, and I think we can all agree that these threats and dangers move beyond stolen images. The takeaways of this example is whose responsibility is to decide whether the threats coming from a page like this are real. How can we tell when online threats are turning into real-life dangers? How can it be assessed when escalation might be expected? As an outcome, many women report feeling anxious because they feel helpless since there is no legal framework for their problem to be correctly handled. As another outcome, many women who were not affected, or at least they don't know about it, feel anxious because they feel there's nowhere to hide. Their photographs can be taken anywhere without them realizing. This is how we return to Ullman's case. Men taking photos, videos in the streets, again, take away these women's agencies in deciding where and how they want their images to appear, inducing anxieties as the people appearing on the footage have no control over what happens with their images. This one is not regional, but I think we will feel affected by it. The US elections are looming about us, and this one might not need much explanation. Half the world this summer was expecting for a certain pop star Taylor Swift endorsement. I think that can also be part of another discussion here, but that's not what I want to talk about today. But while she was contemplating, others took the matters in their own hands. On the first image, we can see Donald Trump's post from August, where he accepts the endorsement of AI-generated Swifties and AI-generated Taylor Swift herself, by only one of the photographs is actually showing the real person, the one on the right above. This is Jenna Pivovarczyk, who wore a homemade t-shirt to grass in Wisconsin at the Trump rally, emblazoned with the words Swifties for Trump. Pivovarczyk is now selling her homemade t-shirts on Etsy, if anyone fancies it. To be fair, the AI-generated Swiftie photographs are actually downloaded from a satire website, but Trump did not really care about it either. That's also not a big surprise, I think. Meanwhile, on the second image, we can see Taylor Swift's actual endorsement from after the presidential debate, endorsing Kamala Harris, signed as childless cat lady, as a comeback to J.D. Vance's comment about Democrats and women in general who decide or end up not having children. I think this case is again on trolling. Even though Swift herself is well known a Democrat supporter, endorsed Biden-Harris in 2020, it did not stop Donald Trump or her fans to actually use her image and the power of her fan base for his benefit. And some questions to consider at the end of my presentation. When Swifties unite for Trump, while Swift herself openly stands against him? Since it's only an AI-generated image, is it okay to use it as fiction? In a situation where the person who is the victim of it clearly stands for the complete opposite. In this case, who represents who?